No one screamed when the water started to move. There was no warning sound, no splash, no roar. At first, they thought the river was calm. Too calm. The boat drifted forward slowly, cutting through the dark water as the sun disappeared behind the trees. Someone laughed. Someone pointed at the surface and said, "Probably just logs." That's when the guide stopped rowing. His face went pale. Not because he saw something move, but because nothing moved at all. Hippos don't chase, they wait. And by the time people realize what's watching them, it's already too late. The river had a reputation, but reputations fade with time. Locals whispered stories about it, usually at night, usually after too many drinks. Tourists dismissed those stories as exaggerations, the kind that grow larger every year, fed by fear and imagination. During the day, the river looked harmless, wide, slow, almost peaceful. Tall reeds lined the banks, swaying gently with the breeze. Birds skimmed the surface, dipping their beaks into the water before rising back into the sky. From a distance, it looked like a perfect place for a guided river tour. Safe, scenic, and predictable. That illusion was the river's greatest weapon. Hippos had lived there long before boats arrived, long before paths were cleared, long before anyone decided the river should be shared. They didn't migrate, they didn't leave, they adapted, silently. Most people think hippos are lazy, fat, slow. That misunderstanding has killed more people than crocodiles in that region. A fully grown hippopotamus can weigh over 3,000 kilograms. Its mouth can open nearly 150 degrees. Its lower canines can reach half a meter in length, not for eating but for killing. And despite their size, hippos can run faster than a human on land and move through water with terrifying precision. But none of that is what makes them truly dangerous. What makes a hippo lethal is territorial silence. The guide knew this. He had grown up near the river. His father had warned him as a child. If you hear a hippo, you're safe. If you don't, leave. That afternoon, there were no sounds. The boat carried 6 people, 2 tourists with cameras hanging from their necks, a couple who had saved for years for this trip, and 1 local assistant who stared at the water far longer than necessary. They had been told not to touch the water, not to lean over the edge, not to trail their hands through the surface. These rules were delivered casually, almost jokingly, as if the real danger was slipping and falling in, not what waited beneath. The engine was off. They were drifting. That's when the guide noticed the pattern. A section of water near the left bank was unnaturally still. No ripples, no insects, no reflection distortion. It looked thick, almost solid, like oil poured across the surface. He knew what that meant. Hippos rest underwater with only their eyes, ears, and nostrils exposed. When they sink completely, they can walk along the riverbed, pushing off the bottom, moving without disturbing the surface. To someone unfamiliar, it looks like nothing is there. To someone who knows, it looks like a grave. The guide raised his hand slowly, signaling silence. One of the tourists whispered a question, but the words died before leaving his mouth. Something about the air had changed. Even the birds had stopped flying low. Then the boat shifted. Not from wind, not from current, from below. A deep, dull pressure lifted the hull slightly, then released it. The boat rocked once, twice. Just enough to make everyone aware of how thin the barrier was between them and the water. The assistant's eyes widened. "Hippo," he whispered. The word didn't sound dramatic, it sounded afraid. Most attacks don't start with aggression, they start with curiosity. The hippo had felt the boat, not as an object, but as an intrusion, a vibration where none should exist, in its territory, near its path, between it and deeper water. To a hippo, that was not a mistake, it was a challenge. The guide reached for the paddle, careful not to splash. Sudden movements could trigger a response. Slow retreat was the only option, but retreat required distance, and the hippo was already closer than anyone realized. Beneath the boat, the animal turned. Its massive body rotated silently, feet pressing against the riverbed. Its head angled upward. Its eyes, adapted to murky water, locked onto the silhouette above. The hippo didn't charge, not yet. It waited, because hippos don't attack out of hunger. They attack to eliminate threats. And in that moment, the boat wasn't a group of people. It was something that didn't belong. The guide knew the next sound would decide everything. Either the engine would start, or the river would. The engine coughed once. That single sound shattered the silence like glass. To the people on the boat, it was hope. A mechanical promise of movement, distance, safety. To the hippo beneath them, it was confirmation. A loud foreign vibration announcing that the intruder was alive, unpredictable, and still inside its territory. The water exploded, not upward like in movies, not with a dramatic leap. The river simply rose as if something immense had pushed itself out of the earth. The boat lurched violently to the side. One of the tourists screamed as his camera slammed against the railing and vanished into the water. The hippo's head broke the surface inches from the hull. Up close, it didn't look like an animal from documentaries. There was no softness, no round, harmless appearance. Its eyes were small, sunken, and focused. Its skin was scarred, thick, and stretched tight over muscle. Water poured off its massive skull as it exhaled, a deep, guttural sound vibrating through the air. The guide shouted for everyone to sit down. Too late, the hippo struck the boat with its head, not biting yet. Testing. The impact felt like a car crash. The wooden side splintered slightly, enough to let water seep in. The assistant grabbed a bucket instinctively, though both men knew it was useless. Hippos don't flip boats because they want to. They flip them because they can. The animal circled once fast despite its size. Its back briefly surfaced, revealing just how large it really was. From end to end, it was longer than the boat itself. The couple clung to each other, frozen. The second tourist stood up, panicking, shifting weight to the wrong side. The guide screamed again, louder this time. But fear doesn't listen. The hippo lunged, its jaws opened wide, wider than logic allowed, pink interior exposed, lower canines gleaming like polished ivory. It clamped down on the edge of the boat, not cleanly, not precisely to do, but with enough force to crack wood like dry bone. The sound was horrific, a grinding, splintering crunch followed by the sudden rush of water as the hull gave way. The boat tipped sharply. One person was thrown forward, slamming into the floor. Another lost grip entirely and fell into the river. The moment a human body hit the water, the rules changed. The hippo released the boat and submerged instantly. No thrashing, no chase on the surface, just disappearance. That's what makes hippos more dangerous than predators that hunt. They don't pursue movement. They intercept space. Underwater, the hippo moved faster than anyone could swim. It didn't see the person as prey. It saw them as an object inside a forbidden zone. The man kicked, flailed, tried to scream, but the river swallowed the sound. A massive shape surged upward beneath him. The impact lifted his body out of the water for a fraction of a second before dragging him back down. Witnesses later said they never saw blood at first, just turbulence. The guide dove his hand into the water, reaching blindly, knowing it was useless but unable to stop himself. The assistant pulled him back, shouting that another attack was coming. And it was. The hippo resurfaced near the boat again, water foaming around its head. It rammed the hull a second time, harder. The remaining structure collapsed inward. The engine snapped loose and sank immediately. Now there was nothing holding them together. Wood floated, supplies scattered. The river reclaimed everything with quiet efficiency. The guide forced everyone toward the nearest bank, shouting directions, timing movements between the hippos resurfacing. He knew one truth better than any survival manual. Hippos don't usually kill everyone. They kill until the threat is gone. That meant escape was possible, but only if the river allowed it. One by one they entered the water, staying close together, moving slowly. No splashing, no sudden changes in direction. The assistant went last, watching the surface constantly. They were halfway to the reeds when the hippo surfaced again. This time it didn't charge, it simply watched. Its eyes followed them, unblinking. Its body remained still, half submerged, blocking the deeper channel behind them. It wasn't deciding whether to attack. It was deciding whether they were still a problem. Seconds stretched into something unbearable. Every breath sounded too loud. Every ripple felt like a mistake. Finally, the hippo turned. Slowly, deliberately, it sank back into the water and vanished. No victory, no relief, just survival, incomplete and temporary. The group reached the bank, shaking, soaked, bleeding from cuts they didn't remember getting. They collapsed into the mud, unable to speak. Behind them, the river smoothed itself out again. Calm, silent, unchanged. Later investigations would call it an unexpected wildlife encounter. Reports would blame poor positioning, human error, bad luck. But the guide knew the truth. Nothing unexpected had happened. They had entered a place where humans were never in control. And for a brief moment, the river reminded them. And somewhere beneath the surface, the hippo resumed its patrol exactly where it had been seen for days, waiting. They didn't leave the river that day. Not really. Even after rescue boats arrived hours later, even after statements were taken and injuries treated, something remained behind, anchored to the bend in the water where the attack had happened. The man who had been pulled under never surfaced. Search teams returned at dawn. Divers entered the water cautiously, knowing exactly what lived beneath them. They found fragments of the boat first, then personal belonging. A shoe, a torn sleeve, a broken watch stopped at the exact moment the river decided. They did not find a body. Hippos rarely leave remains. Their power is blunt, crushing, absolute. When they strike underwater, they don't tear, they compress, break, drown. What's left is often carried away by current long before humans arrive with ropes and oxygen tanks. By midday, the search was called off. Officially, the victim was declared missing, presumed dead. Unofficially, everyone there understood what that meant. The guide returned to the river alone 2 days later. He told no one he was going. He didn't bring tourists, cameras, or radios. Just himself, standing on the same bank, staring at the same stretch of calm water that had swallowed a life without hesitation. The hippo surfaced exactly where it always had. Same distance, same slow rise, same unblinking eyes. It didn't charge. It didn't threaten. It simply existed. Massive, solid, immovable. The guide felt no anger, no fear, just a deep, unsettling clarity. This animal wasn't aggressive in the way people imagine violence. It wasn't hunting. It wasn't enraged. It had reacted the way rivers and storms react, without emotion, without intent beyond preservation of space. The mistake hadn't been the engine. The mistake had been proximity. Hippos kill more humans each year than lions, crocodiles, and sharks combined. Not because they seek conflict, but because humans consistently misunderstand them. Their size suggests slowness. Their faces suggest calm. Their silence suggests tolerance. None of it is true. A hippo is not passive. It is territorial mass given muscle and teeth. Later that week, locals reported seeing the same hippo blocking the channel again. Boats adjusted their routes. Fishermen gave the bend a wider berth. The river adapted, the way it always does. Stories spread, distorted with each retelling. Some said the hippo had attacked without warning. Others claimed the boat provoked it intentionally. A few insisted the animal had become man-eating. None of those versions mattered. The truth was simpler and more disturbing. The hippo had been there first. Months later, the guide quit river work entirely. He took a job inland far from water wide enough to hide something that large beneath its surface. At night, he still dreamed of the sound, not the crash, not the screams, but the moment before. That perfect, unnatural stillness. Because that's when the river is most dangerous. Not when it's loud, not when it's violent, but when it's quiet enough to make you believe you're safe. Somewhere along that bend, the hippo still surfaces from time to time. Boats still pass, farther away now, slower, more respectful. The water looks unchanged to anyone who doesn't know. But the river remembers. It remembers weight. It remembers boundaries. It remembers the moment humans forgot that being allowed into a wild place is not the same as owning it. And it waits, not out of malice, but certainty comes for the next mistake.